the science side of it is what testing exists to help me understand a little bit more about what's going on for this young person. And on the art side, it's like, what are the thoughts and beliefs and experiences this person has had that is either leading them towards feeling better sooner or leading them away from it.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitaminlab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to Personalized by Vitaminlab. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer. Today on the show, I'm excited to introduce Ellen Palmer, a certified holistic health and life coach and founder of the Ideal Life Method. With a rich background as a former sales and marketing executive at Cigna Healthcare and co-founder of the Healing Meals Community Project, Ellen has dedicated her life to helping others achieve their fullest potential. Ellen regularly speaks at conferences and corporate events, sharing her expertise with Fortune 500 companies like Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo. Her workshops, such as From Overwhelm to Ease and Food as Medicine, are known for transforming lives. A graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Ellen's journey was shaped by her own health struggles and a deep passion for holistic wellness. Through the Ideal Life Method, she integrates body, mind, and spirit, empowering individuals with powerful daily habits to support overall well-being. When she's not coaching, Ellen enjoys the outdoors, traveling, and discovering organic green juices. Join us as we delve into her inspiring story and learn how to create your ideal life. Enjoy my episode with Ellen Palmer. Welcome back to Personalized. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer. Thanks so much for joining me today. Welcome, Ellen Palmer. How are you today, Ellen?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's always nice to talk to people from different backgrounds, and I have a lot of respect for what you do. In fact, I have been searching around on the advice of one of my mentors. I've been searching around for a coach, and I thought about your bio a lot today and the kind of journey that you've had so far. And I thought, gosh, it'd be nice to talk to you it would be better to talk to you when I was a younger adult. That would have been super great for me, but never too late for sure to get good advice. So welcome to the show, Ellen. Tell us a little bit about your background and your journey. I know a lot of us get into helping people because we have been helped ourselves or our family members have been. Can you tell us about how you've gotten into what you do?
Sure. I always had a bunch of very random health issues growing up, and those turned into a lot of prescriptions, surgeries, and procedures by the time I was in my early 20s. And that whole time, I just remember it being so frustrating because I never felt well, and the prescriptions that they were putting me on were just destroying my stomach, unbeknownst to me at the time. And, I traveled through my college years and my corporate career, achieving great success, but just not feeling good. And because I wasn't feeling good physically, I wasn't feeling good mentally. And it wasn't until my first son was born with digestive issues that I decided that there's just no chance he was going to suffer like I suffered. And so that took me into an entirely different world of integrative, holistic, natural, and functional medicine. And I could not believe what I was experiencing there, where we actually look at the foundation of root cause and not just looking to diagnose a series of symptoms. And so it opened up my entire world. And I just dug in. We had the good fortune of meeting a couple of fantastic practitioners, one in California, one in Utah, and they just helped me identify some core things that were going on at the foundation of my health. And I was able to get well from that. And it encouraged me to go to school, thinking that I was just going to use that to help myself get well and to help my family get and stay well. And it turned into an entire career shift. I left corporate and started helping practitioners build holistic health practices. And then I built my own.
Oh, wow.
And now I've been doing that since 2009.
Okay, interesting. That's really cool. So you got into the entrepreneurship side of things, the sort of social entrepreneurship, social wellness side of things first. What was that like, transitioning into helping health professionals. In Canada here, it's kind of odd because the conventional system is all publicly funded. So then
Yes.
the complementary and alternative system where I stand, we're sort of like have to run our own thing and figure out how to tell people that we have good things to offer. What was that like for you talking to sort of people like me or trying to get that word out?
Yeah, same here in the United States. Anything outside of traditional medicine, you're on your own, and
Yeah.
you're really just building. It was interesting. It actually happened on the last day of school when we were finishing up, and so many people knew that I had a passion for business and that I had come from a corporate career, and that part was easy for me. I've been oddly fascinated by business since I was a kid. So for me, it was a no brainer just to respond to people's questions and to help them think about what they really wanted to focus on. And, what was it that brought them into the profession outside of traditional medicine? And from that, I started working one on one with coaches and physicians and nurses and chiropractors. And I helped design an 8-week program because there were too many folks to work with at once. So I designed a group program. And it was great because it got people talking to each other as well. Like I had my expertise, what I hardly knew was my expertise at the time, helping build these businesses. But I got other practitioners talking to each other too. So I think it
Hmm.
created a sense of community and a sense of belonging in a time where it wasn't that common. This was back in 2008, 2009 when I got my start. So it was a continuation of my passion for business and my passion for helping people. So it all came together in a way that I never expected. Never.
Mm. Very cool. Those communities are so helpful. I mean,
Mm.
nowadays it's hard to choose one because there's so many, and it can be very difficult to find the right fit. You were in there at the right time. That's really, really great. What would the advice be? Like what would you tell new grads now if you had an opportunity to speak to them, and I'm sure that you do. What's a typical advice you would give to someone who's just coming out of sort of an integrated program and entering into the healthcare space?
I think the most important thing is really following your passion. Entrepreneurialism, it just requires a lot of energy. And so if it's aligned with who you are at the center of who you are, mind, body, spirit, you're going to do great. It's going to be easy. So whatever health issue brought you into the business or whatever concern you wanted to help solve, focus there. And if you have a previous profession, really leverage that. You
Mm,
don't want to abandon that because those are your people too. And so you just bring them into your new world. And so most certainly, focus on the things that you're most passionate about. And I think, if you can niche, it's the hardest thing to do because everyone just wants to help everybody. And I remember that. And I remember how frustrating that was. Really, it's easier for people to find you and you're going to do better and you're going to have a higher likelihood of staying centered and expanding in a way that's reasonable without getting burnt out if you
mm,
are focused on the absolute core of your passion.
right.
So niching is really so, so, so important. And I know it goes against the grain. I think finding ways to stay centered yourself as an entrepreneur, because folks that get into this do it for the passion. And it's just so important to find your own balance so that you can offer that out to the folks. Your time is the most valuable asset you have. So really be mindful in how you're using it. So take some time to get grounded and also be very discerning about your schedule.
Mm,
Absolutely discerning. Not everybody that has a collaboration for you is the ideal partner. So get clear on how you want to use your energy and how you want to use your time.
right. That's great advice.
Those are the big ones. And the power of proximity.
Tell us about that, the power of proximity.
I know it's a new world now that we've recovered from the pandemic and the world is open again. Get to the places where your people are, the
Mm,
places where you really want to have conversations, where your demographic is, because it's just so natural to fall into conversation. And, that could be a conference, that could be a networking group, that could be a group of parents or coaches. It all just matters who you want to speak with and what kind of conversations you want to have. Just put yourself at the center of those conversations.
let your passion guide that. I've been thinking about this a lot. You bring up some really good points. Like I work with a lot of new grads who are naturopathic doctors, and we have a really broad scope. Like we can do a ton of things: primary care here, prescribe medicine, run labs, everything. But getting started is really difficult because of this broad scope, and you want to use all your tools. when I was starting, I thought I'd never work with athletes because that's what I wanted to do. I was super interested in sports performance, but they didn't really know about our profession. They weren't working with naturopaths. Then I found out that there was a tool that could help them perform better. And so instead of like talking about being a naturopath all the time, I was just talking about this one piece of objective data that we're getting from the tool. And all of a sudden they were like,
Right.
okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. We could work with this guy. And then, then there was the opportunity to be more holistic, like actually do nutrition and supplementation and things that were kind of built around this objective data. So that's been my journey, but I didn't get that until like 8 years, 7 years into my career. It's hard to figure out, to be clear. I know a lot of your programs are about clarity and finding that clarity. And that really, really resonates with me. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I think there's so much information everywhere. There's so much technology and conversation and input that it's really, really hard to get quiet and it's really hard to listen to what our essence is saying to us. And so it's just so important for people to develop the skill of presence. And from that place, there's so many clear answers, but we get good at what we practice. And most of us aren't practiced in relaxation or silence or presence. We get things done. We're entrepreneurs. We want to help people. So we're busy a lot. But in order to be clear, we do need to learn how to get centered and to get quiet and then give ourselves an opportunity to daydream a little bit. Since we were young, we were told what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. Then we, grow into our late teens, our early 20s. We start to experience more and we start to get clear about, oh, well, I can expand my thinking a little bit over here. I'm exposed to new ideas and thoughts here. How does that integrate with who I am? But until we pause and then we ask ourselves that daydreamy question, like, what do I really want? It doesn't have a chance to come together. It doesn't have a
Mhm.
chance to marinate. And so clarity for me is about the power of presence and asking ourselves that big question. If you could have anything, what would you want? And, shoot for the moon and see how far you get. Because if you don't shoot there, you're not going anywhere. It's like I use the example, if you say you want to go on vacation, but you don't choose a destination, you're not actually going anywhere. So
Mhm.
first we daydream big, and then we start coming into natural decision making as we get clarity.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not super complicated, but it's critically important.
I think it can be very complicated for some because of all
Mm,
the distractions that are around. I think it can be
mm,
incredibly complicated. And if we tie it back to what you were saying earlier about passions, people have varied passions. People might be interested in 10 different things or then be
Absolutely.
exposed to something that really resonates with them and then they might take a different direction. And as someone in their early 20s, late 20s, that was me. And I know you work with
True.
this population a lot. When I was there, I mean, I was a military officer, and then I wanted to be in medicine, and then I wanted to work with athletes, and I wanted to do this and that, and then I was building an app, and I was trying to do 500 things, and maybe the focus definitely delayed success, caused a delay in my success for sure. So you work with this patient population, this client population, and tell me about what it's like and why you've been kind of driven to work with them.
Sure. I want to pause on what you just said first, if that's okay,
Of
because
course.
in my world, everything you've experienced, you're going to draw on in your professional career. So I don't see those as diversions. I see those as really valuable experiences that you're going to draw gems from for the rest of your life. So it can feel like you aren't at the level of success that you thought you might be at by a certain age, but wow, might you be even more successful because you had those curiosities and you followed those threads. And I just believe it's all really intentionally powerful.
Well, thank you for that. You made my day.
Yeah, you're welcome. I can't wait to see what comes of it too. I just know this to be true in all ways with regard to our health and our relationships and our career and every level of success. And that is what brings me to working with young people. I just remember being, as I mentioned, I didn't feel well. And I just
Mhm.
remember wishing that there was someone I could go to for answers, someone that could help me figure it all out so I could feel better physically, so I could then feel better emotionally. Because if you looked at me from the outside, I didn't really look that much different, but I wasn't happy and I was really stressed and I was overwhelmed. And I wished I had had a mentor or someone to help guide me so that I could just feel better sooner.
Hmm.
And, after my professional career and then coming into this work for all these years now, one of the things that I've just been immensely passionate about is helping this younger generation get clear early so they can build an incredibly solid foundation and really tap into those passions early because, we know how to unravel it mostly when folks are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. But what if young people could start off with standing on a really solid foundation in their health, in their sense of self, and their sense of confidence, and they had the clarity to really pursue those directions that matter most and see where it takes them. And so for me, it was born out of wanting it myself when I was younger. And I've been so blessed. I have two young adult sons now, 24 and 22, soon to be 23. And I've watched them manage this even more complicated world than when I grew
Hmm.
up. And I think, oh my gosh, if there's ever been a time where I want to help, it's absolutely now. And
Hmm.
so it's just all come together in such a beautiful sort of, I won't say a straight line because it has never felt like a straight line, but I see how it's all coming together now and it feels much straighter than it's been.
Oh, that's incredibly well put. Absolutely. I work with a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, and it's kind of funny because we're like in sort of the healthiest city in Canada. Generally, the population here is the healthiest of the entire country, but the young people aren't eating very well, and they're not exercising as much, maybe even as their parents. So it's kind of funny. The 40, 50, 60-year-olds are incredibly healthy, but the young people, they're not maybe following in the same steps. Very generally speaking, for nutrition and exercise. Tell me about what a personalized approach to, on the health coaching side might actually look like for this population. Where do you start?
I always start with a consultation to understand what's front of mind for them. So whether they self refer or they're referred from a parent or another client that might be a friend or a colleague, I always start with a consult.
It's always fun. They're sent by someone else. Do you
I
really
know.
want to be here?
I know. I always start there. Like this time is for you to understand me and understand what I might be able to help you experience. And so it always starts with high level, you know, what, if anything, would you want to be different? What do you love about your life? What's feeling great? And what's in that gap between where you are and where you want to be? And it's interesting because it doesn't matter what they fill out on the short form. The conversation around it is just so rich.
Mhm.
And I listen, probably like you listen, pretty intently. It's not hard. It's just I'm really listening for like what's the thing that they feel blocked around? What type of vocabulary they're using, what types of stories are they sharing? I just hold a place for them to be exactly where they are and with no interest in convincing them to be anywhere else but. And from that, I can hear sometimes is that a limiting belief that's preventing them from confidently going in the direction they want to go? Or are they struggling with anxiety and depression, as so many young people are experiencing?
Mhm.
And what's there? And so, from whatever is shared, I get really, really curious about what's the art and what's the science of what's next for this person, because I really do believe life is both, right? The art and science of being human is different for each person. We have some similarities in that we're human beings, we're not trees or salamanders, I guess, but then it gets really different depending on our genetics, what we want for ourselves, the environments we've grown up in, and the food that we've ingested. It's all so different. And so what I'm really listening for is like what is it that can come together to help bring them closer to what they want. So the science side of it is what testing exists to help me understand a little bit more about what's going on for this young person. And on the art side, it's like, what are the thoughts and beliefs and experiences this person has had that is either leading them towards feeling better sooner or leading them away from it? And there's no judgment in any of that. It's just a lot of curiosity for me. So I love how the art and science come together and it's different by person. And I love to have the science because I love data and I love concrete, specific things. And I also love helping people get quick wins because
Mhm.
you said it before. We live in such a distracted society. We live in such a distracted world. Our minds are so distracted. So it can feel hard to achieve what we want to achieve. It can feel hard to overcome some of those distractions to actually go after what we want. And so if I can get someone some quick wins, that almost always provides the momentum to keep going to get to some of the harder things.
Hmm.
So again, the science of the testing and the art of conversation and listening is really where it begins.
Yeah. I was reading this weekend about the winner effect, the book written about this exact topic. And I was trying to think of examples for my own kids. My kids are 3, 5, and 7, and I'm trying to help them get quick wins. What are the quick wins that you might use or encourage someone to explore in their 20s?
I think the most powerful way we can achieve anything is to have a morning routine.
Right.
And I know it gets talked about a ton, and I've been talking about it since I began this work, but it changed everything for me. I call it structure for freedom. And there's so much to be said on this topic. But if you look at the notion that we get good at what we practice, what are we practicing first thing? Are we practicing coming into self and being settled? Are we practicing looking ahead with joy and really considering, what do I want to feel today? Maybe I read something that's a little bit inspiring. So it kind of changes that early morning cortisol that we're all managing and gets us beyond that and can get us a quick win when we experience the first moment of joy in the day. Maybe it's our sip of coffee, or maybe it's, greeting our puppy or reading something that we weren't able to read the day before. I'm thinking of your young kids.
Hmm.
But quick wins can start with a really simple morning routine. And maybe it's, I'll take you through mine. I get up and I have a really tall glass of water and I just rehydrate my body. And I grab something really simple to read. And I read anywhere from 2 paragraphs to 2 pages. And I just allow my mind to get involved in something else other than my to-do list or wanting to go to social media or wanting
Hmm.
to hand over my life to email or somebody else. I take that time for myself. And then I do a little bit of breath work. And then I might go stand outside on the grass, depending on what the temperature is. And then I'll do a mindfulness exercise and then I go exercise.
Hmm.
So I think where quick wins come from a morning routine is you've now practiced making time for presence.
Right.
You've practiced just being still for a little bit, and that will help us the next time we are distracted. Hopefully, we
Hmm.
can come back to that place.
No, I love that.
Yeah, with regard to food and exercise and all those things, there's a question that I was posed years ago about a change that I was wanting to make. And it seemed like a big, hairy beast at the time. I didn't have the stamina or the know-how to tackle this big, big Herculean effort. And so my friend and practitioner at the time, a fellow practitioner, asked me, like, look, are you at least willing to look at it? And I said, yeah, I could be willing. Like, I could at least be willing.
Mm.
And then flash forward several years, I was a very busy practitioner and mom, and I had these 2 able-bodied teenage boys at home, and I just needed some help. And I would ask them to do things, and no one wants to do extra stuff when they have friends to see or hockey practice to go to or just wanting to have some time to relax. And so I stopped just asking them to do the thing,
Mm.
and I started asking them, like, "Would you be willing to help me because I need to blank? Or
Mm.
would you be willing so that we can get out the door for vacation? Like, would you be willing to help, pull out the sleeping bag so that?" So it was like, "Are you willing so that?" And it changed everything.
Wow.
And since then, I've integrated it into my practice, helping people get quick wins because sometimes those changes that folks want to make, whether it's around trying different types of foods or giving up certain foods if they're causing inflammation or trouble, or maybe it's, starting an exercise habit can seem hard. I always begin with, like, are you willing to try?
Hmm.
Are you willing to think about trying? Wherever they can start, that willingness is an expanded energy and it takes that big Herculean effort and just puts it off in the distance a little bit and brings people to the present moment. I could at least be willing. And 9.5 times out of 10, you get to the next place.
Hmm. Well, you've just introduced something that will be used by at least one person this afternoon, and that's me. That's me for French homework
Good luck.
and math homework for the 7-year-old. Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
approach. That's really cool. That's really smart.
I just think it provides a little bit of relief, especially for young people.
Yeah, and you're creating the space for people to practice some decision making without, you know, being dogmatic about the response. I've been trying to learn as much as possible about effective decision making lately, and some of the pieces that maybe what am I missing in my life? Well, what you already mentioned about being present and a little bit about contemplation. What do you think about effective decision making? Given your career, you're probably an excellent person to speak on this. How do people make good decisions?
I think a couple of things come together. I think if people are willing, there's that word again, to look at the variables they already have answers to.
Right.
I feel so many times folks are trying to make decisions without all of the information or getting clear on what different variables of information they need in order to make the decision. And so I always lead people to like, okay, what do we know? What do we know with certainty?
Mm-hmm.
And we start there. And then we look at what we don't know and we say, okay, what's one next thing that we can do to get us closer to knowing that other variable? And then there's a gut check, right? We know about the enteric nervous system. We know about that gut feeling. We know about our nervous system. It's okay, now that we have as many of the variables as we have, let's check in with self. So I might take someone through a quiet moment of visualization where I ask them to get quiet. We close our eyes, we do some breathing, and I ask them to just, get into their center a little bit and check it out. How's it feel? And if they can feel where they feel it, that's even better because then we can give it some construct. We can give it some texture and some tone and some shape. And there's a lot of information there. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of information. So it might be a non-traditional decision making, but I find that really helps people have more peace around their decisions, that they at least have integrated those variables to take it to the next level. And then sometimes you just have to go in a direction and gain more information. I call it R&D, research and development. You make a decision best you can, and then you live it and you try it on for size, and then you modify and you calibrate around the modifications.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find peace in any of that, it's going to go much more smoothly and you're going to be guided more naturally to the next decision.
Mm-hmm.
Vitaminlab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitaminlab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
I feel like you're speaking directly to me today. This is so timely, Ellen. So timely.
I love that.
Let's take a bit of a detour and go to maybe an older crowd and talk about corporate executives, high performers. Everyone's drained. Everyone's wiped.
Yeah.
Everyone's overworked. Everyone feels like they need to be everything to everyone all of the time. And I know that, you've created a program to help people get out of this funk. Tell us a little bit about the ideal life method. Tell us about your program and maybe other approaches you might have for this population who just feels like they need to be everywhere and do all of the things.
Yeah. I love that you're calling it out because one of the things that I think is problematic, or I've seen and experienced as being problematic, is that people are looking at their neighbor going, they have it all figured out. Or they're going on to social media going, everyone's got to figure it out but me. Why am I stressed out? Why am I burned out? Why can't I keep up? Why do I feel behind? And the truth of the matter is, we are beyond scale. I'm not sure if you've been hearing that term lately, that phrase, but never, ever did we think our brains were designed to be able to accommodate this much information and to be in this many places at once and to be solving for so many different variables all in one time and in one place in one human being. And so that program was really born out of like, how do I help more people at once recalibrate around what's ideal? Because we're all really, really busy, but are we even moving in the direction that is important for who we each are? We were talking before, life is an art and a science. And, I was asked this question a long time ago, like, can you have it all? And I thought, yeah, I believe you can, but you need to know what your all is, because your all is different than my all. And so the program was designed to help people pause and get clear on what really matters. And some things are going to fall away naturally because they just don't align with who you are and what you see for yourself. And give folks permission to have that happen. What would it be like if you just stayed in your sweet spot and you are the best version of yourself for the things and the patients and the family and all of the things that matter to you? Not for everybody, but for those people that matter most to you, including self. And then it was teaching the skill of, okay, now that you have that clarity around what's ideal for you and you now have permission to daydream about it, how does it come together? We are what we eat. If we are not taking in nutrition and energy and thoughts that serve the greater ideal for each of us, we're not going to have the engine or the life that we want. So I teach a little bit about food. I teach a little bit about energy and thought and belief and habit. And I also teach about structure for freedom, which is interesting that this is the second time I've mentioned it because I was so structure averse growing up. I just did not want to be pinned down. And what's fascinating is I don't know how you have freedom unless you have a little bit of structure to contain all of the ever-endedness of thought and information and demand. It's too much. And so we spend some time on setting up our lives with the structure to feel freedom and to feel liberated, to be the version of self that we want to be and to experience the things we want to experience. And we do that through fueling ourselves through mind, body, and spirit. Because without that fuel, there's nothing to structure. We don't have the life that encourages the structure to be successful in it. So that is a group program. It's really interesting how it's evolved over the course of time. And as I've evolved over the course of time, how it's changed and modified and evolved. And so it's just a great way to be with other as well. So in a world where we feel secluded and isolated and lonely, even though we have more technology to keep us connected than ever, it's a great way to have real conversations. It's a great way to have fantastic skill building around truly listening to self and other, which provokes so much connection and so much curiosity, which then furthers connection. So it's the ideal doesn't mean it's the perfect. Ideal is different by person. And again, if we don't shoot for the ideal, where are we going to be? Probably surviving. And we're living in a world where people are surviving, which is baseline. But there's so much more here for us. There's just so much more.
And nice to be in a group where people are talking about structure for freedom all the time. I don't know why I need you to tell me that. Why is it that I need you to tell me to have a morning routine?
Isn't that funny? So obviously we teach what we need to learn. And this changed my life. And I have to stay in these practices because it keeps me healthy. It keeps me happy. It keeps me connected. It keeps me loving. Success is defined by each of us so differently, but you just heard my formula. Really, those are the things, or those are the ways that I would define success. It's really around connection and energy and impact in the world.
Well, and you're making a big impact with group programming. I know a lot of integrated practitioners like myself in Canada here are getting more into group programming. And it's all the rage now to try to have group consultation for specific things. Tell me about what that dynamic is like. Can you be a little more detailed about how you got into it and how you created a space where people could feel comfortable kind of growing with others?
It's interesting to me that the answer is always, I got into it because I needed it.
Well, you're hearing my responses today.
Yeah, as a solopreneur, I was really on the verge of, I was lonely for sure, but I was definitely on the verge of too much stress, burnout. I really needed to find a better way to help more people without burning out. And it was a capacity issue, and it was a solopreneur's, you know, desire for connection. So it was born out of that, really wanting to bring those two things together. And also, I had recently experienced the power of another group program that I had been involved in, where the insight was so profound. So it was, when we are in group, our resistance to our own information goes down because we're not in the hot seat the whole time. So we're listening to other people going like, that is so fascinating. And then we pause and go, okay, wait 1 minute. Like, I could do that. I need that. But because my resistance was low, I wasn't consuming it from a defensive place. Like, well, wait, I have all of my own thoughts and beliefs about that. And so it just came together that I wanted other folks to be in the passenger seat,
Mm-hmm.
listening and being curious about someone else's experience so that they could then integrate it with themselves. And so it came together so quickly. I had about a week to myself in my house without my family home, and I just downloaded all of the most important things that I was talking about in coaching and the feedback that I was getting in different public speaking opportunities that I had within corporate and within the community. And it just all downloaded really within the course of that week. And then it was a matter of like, how do I package this up? How do I simplify this? How do I make it accessible in bite-sized pieces so people don't feel overwhelmed by it? And that's when the modules came
Mm-hmm.
into clarity. And it was like, okay, these can be packaged together under this thought and this concept. And, that's extra. That might be something that some people need, but not everybody. And so that will go to the master class. So there's a foundations class and there's a master class. And it was an absolute joy to deliver the first time. And then the feedback from that just helped develop it into the next round and so on and so forth. And then I delivered it to young folks in their early 20s. And that was epic because the
Mm-hmm.
perspective on that was just so brilliant in how they think about things. And yeah. And so now it's evolved further, and there's a new version of it coming out in September that's even the most evolved thinking. So
Nice. Oh, excellent.
it was born out of my own necessity and really wanting folks to experience things differently.
Well, it's a good lesson for people, to try to create what you would need so that because the passion is kind of ingrained in it, like, oh, this is what I needed at that time. Other people may need that as well. It totally makes sense. I'm doing it with endurance athletes right now. So I have this kind of program. It's not a group program. It's one-on-one, which is kind of silly because it should be group, but we do it one-on-one. But it's basically trying to implement all the tools that I thought would have been valuable to me. And just right before we got on a call, someone called and it's like, I need that tool. It's like, well, that's the tool that I have that I wish I had when I was in your space. It's like the coolest thing when you put that out there.
Yeah.
Then you start to find your crowd.
Definitely. And don't be afraid to just get it down into some sort of structure to start with. Like, say you turn this into a group program, which is just the best of all of your best, right? So working
Mhm.
with high performance athletes or executives, and I feel fortunate to have worked with both as well. It's like, okay, well, what's going to move the mark in each of these areas that intimately, the things that you're saying over and over and over and over again, just get them down and start playing with it as a puzzle. Like, how could this come
Mhm.
together in different modules? And do you want it to be something that someone can just download, or is your style much more directed towards conversation, like we were just talking about with the ideal life method, where it's it's so generative in conversation. There's so much evolution for folks and liberation for folks in conversation. So, and
Yeah,
you'll have a personal style that directs that.
it's like the Amazon flywheel. The more user input, the better the program gets.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our lives too.
Oh, completely. Well, you just blew my mind there. I know that you have a lot of corporate wellness programs and you've been doing corporate wellness programs for a while. Can you tell me about the program that you do that resonates the most with the crowd and what they kind of get out of it? Well, what's your favorite one to deliver? Maybe they're different. Your favorite one, what one resonates the most? I know a lot of people, of course, in our profession, attempt to give corporate wellness programs, but it's hard to find what's going to resonate with the largest group. of people
Yeah.
who didn't necessarily choose to be there. What's that been like for you?
Gosh, that's such a good frame because I have a lot of HR leaders that I have met over the years and some friends who are in that space too. And they're like, I can't possibly see another off the shelf
Yeah.
leadership workshop. It's generic.
We got to do something different.
Yeah, my speaking style is very much workshop format in that I want someone to have a breakthrough in the session that we're in. And so whether that was during COVID and we were, 1 to 1,000, or it's 1 to 25 of me with leaders in a beautiful conference room or at a resort location. Really, it's optimization for leaders is the most popular. And what we get into there, it's not a bait and switch, but it's not the type of optimization that you might think. So, yes, it's art and science. Again, we talk about how to optimize our own personal life and professional life, but it's also how do we lead? And a lot of that is around listening. How do we listen? How do we really help other people be phenomenal? If we're not grounded, if we're not self aware, if we're not optimized, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to be present as leaders if we aren't feeling great or we don't have the power of our own presence. And so that presentation absolutely gets rave reviews, and there's a lot of conversation afterwards, usually.
I bet there is. Right now, I'm doing this really cool self-reflection thing for a program I'm in about leadership self-development. And I'm trying to go through the different attributes of a great leader. And you mentioned one today, you mentioned listening and trying to help people figure out how to be a good listener. Do you have any tips for that? Because I mean, practitioners, this is what we do, right? It's what we do. And a lot of us really struggle to be really, really good listeners. You have any tips for us?
Well, it's interesting. I'm working with some other professionals on evolving this, and we have an incredible workshop that's being delivered around the country now around this. But if I were to pull one of the skills, it really is to be present. It
Mhm.
sounds so simple, but in order to be a good listener, we have to understand what we are entering conversation with. Like,
Mhm.
are we tired and not present? Are we distracted? Is there a phone on the table between us? Is there an agenda? So, coming into presence before we enter conversation and just check those things. What am I coming into this conversation on my mind or my heart or my being? And then practice silence. Practice. So, I guess that's two. It's, again, it's the power of
They're
presence. What
connected.
am I coming into this with? And it's practicing just listening.
Definitely. I'm sure in a group of type A personality, corporate executive types, it's not the easiest thing to do. Sit there and be silent. Look at your partner and don't say anything. That's really tough.
Don't say anything. And when they're finished, I need for you to repeat, paraphrase what they said.
Mm.
And so working
Mhm.
with leaders is so fun. I love it so much. And whether it's youth leaders or professional leaders, it's, what do you need people to know? So as leaders, we're expected to know a ton, and we're expected to have it at the ready, and we're expected to solve things. And so a new way of listening is, what do you feel like you need people to know? Now that you know that, set it aside.
Mhm.
It's not you sharing more about what you know. It's, do you have the capacity to be present and to listen?
Okay. Another nugget taken by me. I need you to tell me about the Healing Meals Community Project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is an incredible organization. So I was working as a solopreneur at the time. And again, craving connection, craving collaboration. And I could only do so much in my private practice helping people. And, you can only talk about kale and quinoa on so much scale when you're working
Mhm.
individually or, helping people get really, really clear about their decision making one on one. And so I was starting to look at a program called Wise and Well that I was developing. And someone in my town had kept saying to me, like, you need to know Sarah. And interestingly, Sarah kept hearing from everybody, you need to know Ellen. And so we got introduced and we talked for hours on end. And we just connected so passionately on food is medicine and youth empowerment. And so we started working on this program together, Wise and Well. We brought it to a college where we had some funding. And the whole time she was saying, like, you're going to love what my sister's doing in California. You're going to love it so much. And I said, okay, like my business mind was like, let's get this spinning. Let's really create some
Mhm.
impact here. And then we'll look at something else. Well, we lost our funding, thankfully, for this other program. And she said, let's take a peek at what my sister's doing out in California. And that was a medically tailored meal program where youth were the chefs starting at age 14.
Cool.
And so we just dug into their model, their methodology. We went out to California with a couple of other women or other founders, and we just dug into their protocol and we decided, like, this is a way to create an incredible community around food as medicine and an incredible opportunity to bring young people together in a youth development program without them realizing it was a youth development program.
Right.
And so we went out in November and we formed our 501c3 in January, and we cooked our first meal in March of 2016. And as of, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, we cooked our 160,000th meal.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Wow.
with thousands of volunteers.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's really been incredible. And I made the very hard decision to pursue additional opportunities. Last summer, we were at our big fundraiser, and Sarah and I split the room as we typically did and just had amazing conversations. And our youth spoke that night, and we raised over $150,000. And
Wow.
I put my head on the pillow that night. That was our 8th year. And I thought, wow, we are in really, really, really good shape. And now I need to go help solve mental health because that's
Mhm.
the next passion that's really calling me. And so I love our organization. I love what's happening there. I feel fortunate to stay involved tangentially. And Sarah and I are always close and will be forever. So
Mhm.
it's an incredible organization.
Absolutely. Way to go. So, first of all, I think it's an incredible tool to have as a teenager to learn how to cook. But are these
Yeah.
teenagers who are trying to become chefs,
No.
or what is the pathway that a teenager would get involved in an organization like this?
Yeah. It's such a great question. And I love this question because kids come for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes they're voluntold, like my kids were, like, we're starting
Mhm.
this and we need your help. And so they gathered friends, and some of our adult mentor friends joined us. And kids are still voluntold because their school requires community service hours. And then other kids
Mm.
come because they play sports, they might play an instrument, they might be involved in theater, but they just want to do something different. They want to meet
Right.
new kids, they want to have different experiences. And sometimes they come because they have nothing else to do and they're lonely and they're feeling disconnected. And so no matter how they come through the front door, when they walk through that door, we just hold them here. We just believe in them and we love them well and we encourage them and we know that they're going to be amazing. And what happens every time is they are.
Mhm.
They put aside any differences they might feel from the youth across from them or the age gap that they might feel with the adult mentor who's hanging out at their table too, and they just learn how to communicate differently and they learn how to be present and they learn how to ask questions and not have it be so traumatizing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of pressure on young people these days, and they just get a break from that when they come into the kitchen,
Definitely.
and they just get to be championed for all that they are and all that we know that they are going to grow into be.
Mhm.
And, it's different when you're coming in to do something for someone else. So all these meals go to families that are struggling with a health crisis.
Oh, that was my next question. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the recipients,
Really cool. So there's an added value there where they're
yeah,
creating for someone in need.
they are. So they come in helping and they leave feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. And what they've also learned is confidence,
Mhm.
communication, listening, collaboration, problem solving, project management, crisis management sometimes,
Definitely.
creativity. One of our favorite activities on one of the cooking shifts is there's just extra food. And so we just ask the kids, what do you want to do with this? And sometimes they're just so freaked out. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this food. We're like, well, give it a try. You cannot ruin anything. It's all
Mhm.
experimental. So check it out, see what you can come up with. And they're always just so amazed at themselves that they were able to come up with a pesto or a sauce or a
Right.
snack that they share with anyone that might be in the kitchen that day.
Super fun, but I think it's a good lesson for all of us, because you can make mistakes in the kitchen. You can have really easy wins. You
Yeah.
can safely
Yeah.
make mistakes most of the
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
you can also do something really good for others, and it can help you feel really good about, the action that you've taken, but, it can bring people together.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really, really cool idea. I'm big into, of course, now about getting these wins, but to have it end in such a big win that the kids can take home with them, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I agree with you. My heart is still there as well. It's the most incredible integration of heart and spirit, and it's a beautiful thing to experience. And
Mhm.
what's interesting, and when we started our first program, Wise and Well, before Healing Meals Community Project, it was to help people really understand the power that we all have within ourselves to create change. And food is the most powerful way there is to change the way we're feeling. And it's not just to eat that, ooey gooey thing that helps us feel good in that moment. It's not that at all. It's we can change our energy by drinking the right types of water or the right
Mhm.
types of electrolytes or pulling together a snack that gives us more energy. There's just so much power there. And when you're in a community kitchen like Healing Meals, you don't realize you're learning how to do that. You're
Mm.
chopping, slicing, dicing, sauteing, mixing. You don't realize you're actually learning how to do that for yourself and for other people.
Oh, such a great idea. So cool. On this show, we typically ask people, because it's about personalization, we ask about what's one thing that's unique to you that most people don't know about you. Anything you'd like to share?
It's interesting because I think I've referenced it in our conversation today, but I have just had this incredible passion for business since I was a young person. And I had the chance to do some pretty cool things when I was in high school that I loved. And I was involved in a couple different programs that were kind of unusual for its time when I was a kid. And I love business because it's creative space. We talk about structure for freedom. Business gives people an opportunity to come together, in this case, to help people heal, to help people connect. And I think business gets a dirty rap sometimes. There shouldn't be structure or profit or anything. And I think, well, how would the world go round? How would we be able to help people if we didn't have these structures to do it? And so
Hmm.
it's a delight for me, whether I'm building my own or doing that in corporate or helping other folks do that. So I guess a little fun fact.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for sharing. It resonates totally with me. I mean, I'm doing a social entrepreneurship
Yeah,
courses right now because I want to bring
sure.
good things to the
Yes,
world, and the only way to do that
exactly.
is if you have a business that works.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that I talk with professionals about, whether they are, in a company that they've built that's worth several $1,000,000, or if they're just getting started as a practitioner. And that is know what you're worth and know what your offering is worth, because there needs to be a value exchange. Like it used to be
Mm.
chickens and fabrics and grains, and now it's just dollars and cents. And it's the energy of money is complicated, but it doesn't need to be. If we're not charging what someone else values, they may not value it themselves and they may not do it. One of
Mhm.
the biggest lessons I've gotten in business is someone didn't want to work with me because I wasn't charging enough. That's fascinating to me.
Wow.
But
For
because it's
sure.
only a value exchange, they didn't feel like I valued myself and what I had to offer as much as they valued
Wow.
something, an investment that they were wanting to make. And so, for all of our entrepreneurs out there that might be listening to this, it serves everybody when you understand the value of what you are helping people create within themselves.
Hmm. Well, I think we should end there. That's absolutely perfect, Ellen. My goodness, I loved it. It's very nice to chat with you. Where could people find out more about you if we're looking to, say, connect with you? Where should we go?
Sure. My website is ellenpalmerwellness.com, and on social, it's Ellen Clark Palmer on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn.
Great. Okay, we'll be sure to check it out. Thanks so much for your time today. Very nice to meet you, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitaminlab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast, and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.